Let me ask you something. And I want you to sit with this question before you answer it. When was the last time you did something that terrified you? Not something mildly uncomfortable. Not something slightly inconvenient. I mean something that made your hand shake, your stomach turn, your mind scream at you to stop. When was the last time you pushed yourself so far beyond the boundaries of what felt safe that you couldn't sleep at night because of it? If you're struggling to remember, that is your answer. That struggle to remember is the diagnosis. And the diagnosis is this: you are already dead. Now, I know that is a strong statement. I know you are sitting there right now watching this video, breathing, blinking, your heart pumping blood through your veins. And you want to say to me, Dr. Munroe, I am not dead. I am alive. But hear me when I tell you this. There is a kind of death that does not stop your heartbeat. There is a kind of death that does not close your eyes. There is a kind of death that lets you wake up every morning, brush your teeth, go to work, come home, watch television, and go to sleep. And not once, not for a single second, did you do anything with the magnificent, terrifying, world-altering potential that God deposited inside of you. That is not living. That is rehearsing for burial. The most dangerous place on the face of this earth is not a battlefield. It is not a war zone. It is not a hospital emergency room at midnight. The most dangerous place on the face of this earth is your bed, your couch, that comfortable chair where you sit and watch other people live the life you were created to live, because the battlefield will kill your body. But comfort will kill your destiny. And what is worse, it will kill it quietly. It will kill it gently. It will kill it with warmth. Comfort does not come to you with a weapon. It does not announce itself as your enemy. It comes to you in the form of familiarity. It comes to you in the form of routine. It tucks you in at night and whispers, you can do it tomorrow. And you believe it. You believe it because it feels like kindness. You believe it because it feels like rest. But what it actually is a slow and sophisticated assassination of everything you were meant to become. I want to talk to you today about the graveyard, because I've been saying for years, and I will say it again until the day I draw my last breath, that the richest place on the planet is not the gold mines of South Africa. It is not the oil fields of Saudi Arabia. It is not Wall Street or Silicon Valley or any vault in any bank in any country on this earth. The richest place on the planet is the cemetery, because in that cemetery there are buried symphonies that were never composed. There are buried businesses that were never built. There are buried books that were never written, inventions that were never invented, cures for diseases that took millions of lives, cures that existed fully formed in the mind of someone who was too comfortable, too afraid, too settled into their routine to pull them out. People went to their graves with their music still in them, and the earth received them, and the world moved on. And the solution to the problem that could have changed everything, it went into the dirt. And I need you to understand something today with every fiber of your being. If you do not change, if you do not wake up and become violently, ruthlessly, unapologetically dissatisfied with average, you will join them. Now, let me tell you a story. There was an eagle, a magnificent, powerful, majestic eagle, the kind of creature that God designed to climb higher than any other bird on the face of the earth. Its wingspan could block out the sun. Its eyes could spot a fish beneath the surface of a river from 2 miles in the sky. Its talons were built like iron. Its chest was made for altitude. But this eagle hatched in a chicken yard. Maybe there was a storm and the egg was displaced. Maybe a farmer found it and placed it among the hens. It doesn't matter how it got there. What matters is what happened after. Because that eagle, from the moment it broke through its shell and opened its eyes, did not see the sky. It saw dirt. It saw chickens pecking the ground. It saw the wooden slats of a fence and the scattered grain and the low, unglamorous, limited life of a bird that was never designed to fly higher than a rooftop. And so the eagle did what every creature does when its environment becomes its education. It adapted. It started pecking the ground. It started eating grain. It started walking instead of flying. It started making the same small clucking sounds as the creatures around it. It forgot, or perhaps more accurately, it never discovered that inside its chest was the architecture of a predator built for the heavens. And then one day, a man came to that farm who knew about eagles. He walked through the chicken yard and he saw this large, strange bird walking among the hens, its head down, pecking at the dust. And he stopped and he looked and he felt something break inside of him, because he recognized what the eagle did not. He turned to the farmer and said, "Do you know what you have here?" And the farmer laughed. He said, "That's just one of my chickens. Doesn't lay eggs, but it's harmless." Harmless. He called an eagle harmless. The man picked up the eagle and he carried it to a high place, a cliff overlooking a vast valley. And he held that eagle up and he opened his hands, and the eagle looked down and it panicked. It flapped its wings wildly and it dropped like a stone and it caught itself just above the treetops. And in that terrifying involuntary, desperate moment of falling, it flew. Not because it wanted to, not because it felt ready, not because the conditions were perfect and the timing was right and someone told it a motivational speech and it felt inspired. It flew because it had no other choice. Because the ground was rushing toward it, and the body that God gave it, the body it had forgotten about, the body it had been betraying every day in that chicken yard, that body remembered what the mind had forgotten. And it soared. Now, why do I tell you that story? I tell you that story because you are that eagle. And I'm not saying it to flatter you. I am saying it as a diagnosis and a warning. Because the chicken yard you're living in is not just a place. It is a mindset. It is a relationship. It is a job you've had for 11 years that you have never once felt called to do. It is a city you stayed in because it was familiar. It is a dream you stopped pursuing because the people around you, the chickens in your yard, told you it was unrealistic. The most dangerous thing about a chicken yard is not the chickens. The chickens are just being chickens. They cannot help being what they are. The most dangerous thing about a chicken yard is that if you stay in it long enough, you will forget that you are not a chicken. You will start to measure your success by chicken standards. You will start to set chicken-size goals. You will start to feel ambitious if you find a slightly larger pile of grain than the chicken next to you. And you will call that growth. And you will call that progress. And you will call that a good life. But you were not built for the ground. You were built for the sky. And every day that you spend with your head down, pecking in the dirt, the sky is waiting. The sky is vast, and it is empty, and it is calling your name. And you cannot hear it because the noise of comfort is too loud. The noise of comfort sounds like television. It sounds like the notification on your phone. It sounds like the voice in your head that says, you've worked hard enough today, you deserve a rest. And maybe you have worked hard. Maybe you have. But the question is not whether you deserve rest. The question is whether the rest you are taking is a comma in the story of your purpose, or whether it has quietly become a period. Let me talk to you about potential. Because this word potential is the most loaded word in any language on this earth. And most people use it as a compliment. You have so much potential. People say it and they smile when they say it. Parents say it to children. Teachers say it to students. Coaches say it to athletes. And everybody receives it as praise. But I want you to hear something that nobody is telling you. Potential is not a compliment. Potential is a debt. When someone says you have potential, what they are actually saying is there is something inside of you that has not been released yet. An undelivered potential is not a promise, it is a burden. It is a responsibility. It is a debt that you owe to the world, to your generation, to the God who placed that seed inside of you. And comfort is the thing that convinces you that it is acceptable to die in debt. I have met people who are 60, 70 years old, people who have lived what the world would call a full life, and behind their eyes there is this quiet, devastating grief. Not grief for someone they lost, grief for the person they never became, grief for the business they never started, the book they never wrote, the child they could have inspired if they had just been brave enough, just been disciplined enough, just been willing enough to step out of the yard and into the sky. That grief is the most honest thing about them. And it is too late. I do not want that to be you. I am talking to you specifically, not the person next to you, not some abstract viewer, not humanity in general. I am talking to you, the person watching this video right now. You, who has been circling the same mountain for years. You, who goes to bed every night knowing you should be doing more and wakes up every morning choosing less. I am talking to you, and now I need to tell you something about the path out. Because this is where most motivational content fails you. Most people will tell you to chase your dreams and believe in yourself, and the universe will align. And they send you into the world with feelings, but no framework. I am not going to do that to you. The path out of the comfort zone is not pleasant. It is not romantic. It is not Instagram worthy, at least not in the beginning. The path out of the comfort zone is the narrow road, and it is narrow for a reason. It is narrow because most people will not fit through it. Not because they are too large, but because they refuse to put down what they are carrying. And what are they carrying? Comfort, familiarity, the approval of people who are just as lost as they are, the opinion of relatives who never left the chicken yard and cannot understand why you want to fly. You are going to have to put it all down. And when you put it down, and when you step onto that narrow road, the first thing you're going to notice is the silence. Because most of the noise in your life, the parties, the social gatherings, the group chats, the people who call themselves your friends, that noise was designed for people who are staying, and you are leaving. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes with growth. I need to prepare you for it, because if you are not prepared, it will send you running back to the yard. This loneliness is not the loneliness of abandonment. It is the loneliness of elevation. It is the loneliness that every great person in history felt at some point in their journey. The moment when they looked around and realized that no one they knew was going where they were going. Moses felt it in the wilderness. David felt it in the cave. Jesus felt it in Gethsemane. Every person who ever changed anything, they all passed through a season where the path was dark and they were on it alone. And I want you to understand something about that darkness. That darkness is not your enemy. That darkness is your classroom. That darkness is where God does his finest work in the human soul. Because in the dark, you cannot rely on the applause of others. In the dark, you cannot perform for an audience. In the dark, the only thing that keeps you moving is conviction. And conviction is the only fuel that takes you all the way. Most people are running on approval. They move when they are praised, and they stop when they are criticized, which means their whole life is controlled by the opinions of people who haven't figured out their own lives yet. How dangerous is that? How utterly, completely dangerous is that? Your potential, your irreplaceable, God-given, world-changing potential is being held hostage by what someone who is also living in a chicken yard thinks about your decision to fly. Let me go deeper. I want to talk to you about discipline, not as a concept, not as a buzzword, as a physical, daily, ruthless practice that you must build into the architecture of your life if you ever intend to escape the graveyard. Discipline is not punishment. I know some of you have been taught that. I know some of you have been told that suffering is something to be avoided, that your life should be comfortable, that if something is hard, it must not be the right path. But I want to reframe this for you completely and permanently. Suffering chosen is called training. Suffering avoided is called stagnation. And the only difference between the person who achieves greatness and the person who carries greatness to the grave, the only difference is whether they were willing to choose the suffering that leads somewhere instead of sitting in the comfort that leads nowhere. The athlete who wakes up at 5 in the morning to train while the rest of the world is asleep, they are not suffering more than the person in the bed. They are suffering differently, and their suffering is an investment. It is a deposit into an account that will pay out in ways that the person in the bed cannot even imagine. The entrepreneur who works 12-hour days building something from nothing, who skips the parties and declines the invitations and says no to the things that feel good right now because they are fixated on the thing that will matter 10 years from now. They are not. Miserable. They are positioned, and positioning is everything. You see, most people want the fruit without the root. They want the harvest without the planting. They want the elevation without the suffering that altitude requires. And so they stay on the ground and they point up at the people who made the climb, and they call them lucky, they call them privileged, they call them blessed. And they are not wrong about the blessing, but they are wrong about when the blessing arrived. The blessing did not arrive at the top of the mountain. The blessing was in the decision to climb. The blessing was in the first step. The blessing was in the 10,000th step, when the legs were burning and the mind was screaming to stop, and the person said, with everything in them, not yet. I want to talk to you now about purpose, because purpose is the antidote to comfort. A person who knows their purpose cannot be kept in a chicken yard, not permanently. because purpose is a fire, and fire does not sit still. Fire does not respect boundaries. Fire does not care about comfort. Fire consumes everything that is not fireproof. And if your purpose is real, if it is genuine, if it was deposited in you by God and not constructed by your ego, then it will eventually burn through every excuse, every fear, every layer of comfort you have wrapped around yourself. But here is the key. Here is the thing that most people miss. Purpose has to be discovered before it can be deployed. And discovery requires solitude. It requires the willingness to sit with yourself, without your phone, without your distractions, without the constant noise of other people's opinions, and ask yourself the hardest question a human being can ask. What was I born to do? Not what do I want. Not what would make me happy. Not what would make my parents proud or impress my peers. What was I specifically, uniquely, irreplaceably I born to do? And when you find the answer, and I believe you already know the answer, somewhere beneath all the layers of comfort and fear and self-doubt, and the voice of every person who ever told you to be realistic, the answer is already there. When you find it, your entire relationship with discomfort will change. Because you will realize that the discomfort of pursuing your purpose is nothing. Nothing compared to the agony of abandoning it. The graveyard is full of people who chose short-term comfort over long-term significance. And I am asking you, I am pleading with you to choose differently. Now, let me address the people in your life, because this is the part nobody wants to talk about. When you decide to change, when you decide to leave the yard, to stop pecking the ground, to spread those wings, not everyone in your life will celebrate you. And I am not just talking about enemies. I am talking about people who love you, people who genuinely care about you and want what is best for you. But what is best for you and what is familiar to them, those are two very different things. The people who have grown accustomed to your smallness will feel threatened by your expansion. Not because they are evil, but because your growth is an indictment of their stagnation. When you start waking up early, they feel the accusation in your alarm clock. When you stop going to the places that waste your time, they feel rejected. When you start talking about your goals with fire in your eyes, they feel uncomfortable because they buried their goals long ago and they have made peace with the dirt. And they will say things like, "You've changed." And they will mean it as a criticism, but you need to hear it as a confirmation. Yes, you have changed. That is the point. That is the whole point. You were not designed to remain the same person for the rest of your life. You were designed to grow. You were designed to evolve. You were designed to shed versions of yourself that no longer serve the purpose you were made for. The way a snake sheds its skin, not with grief, not with apology, but with necessity. And the people who cannot grow with you, you must love them from a distance. You must wish them well and mean it and pray for them and refuse to allow their stagnation to become your ceiling. Because the ceiling of the chicken yard is the rooftop, and you were made for the stratosphere. Let me bring this home. Let me leave you with something that I want you to carry for the rest of your life. There will come a moment, if you keep going, if you choose the narrow road, if you embrace the darkness and the loneliness and the discipline and the burning discomfort of growth, there will come a moment when you break through. Not gradually, not incrementally. There will be a moment like the moment that eagle caught the updraft and stopped falling and started soaring, where everything shifts. Where the thing you have been building in the dark suddenly stands in the light. Where the years of unseen labor suddenly become visible fruit. Where the people who called you unrealistic suddenly call you inspiring. And in that moment, you will have a choice. A choice that is more dangerous than any you have faced before. Because in that moment, comfort will come for you again. It will come dressed in success this time. It will come dressed in achievement and recognition and the applause you spent years working toward. And it will say to you, you have arrived. You can rest now. And you must refuse. Because greatness is not a destination. It is a direction. And the moment you stop moving in that direction, the moment you sit down in the comfort of which you've already built, you begin again to die. The graveyard is patient. It has waited this long. It will wait for you to stop. And the moment you stop, it will receive you not with hostility, but with the same quiet warmth that a bed offers. A man who has forgotten he was supposed to be climbing a mountain. Do not let it take you. You were not put on this earth to be comfortable. You were not put on this earth to be safe. You were not put on this earth to consume and accumulate and exist and expire without leaving a single permanent mark on the world. That will bear witness to the fact that you were here. You were put here to matter. You were put here to produce, to create, to serve, to solve, to build something that will outlive your body and carry the evidence of your purpose into generations that have not yet been born. That is why you are here. And every day that you spend in the yard is a day that the sky mourns for you. I am telling you today, with everything in me, wake up. Not tomorrow, not when the conditions are better, not when you feel ready, because I promise you, you will never feel ready. The eagle did not feel ready when the man opened his hands on that cliff. But the design inside of it, the design that was placed there before it was ever born, That design knew exactly what to do. And so does yours. The graveyard is full. It is overflowing with potential that was never released, with purpose that was never pursued, with greatness that was swallowed by comfort before it ever had the chance to breathe. I am asking you, I am challenging you to not be among them. Not in a negative way, in a positive way. The cliff is underneath your feet right now. You are standing on the edge. The only question left is this: will you fall or will you fly?